right now. Without further ado, please welcome the Bones Brigade.
Thank you all so much for being here. This is the second day of the Bones Brigade experience. We started last night, yesterday, and we had really a spectacular time. We're super grateful to all of you for being here. The reason this all happened, many of you might or might not know this, but Mike McGill owned a skateboard shop 8 months ago. He invited us down there to do signings. We figured there'd be 100 people that would show up. They'd serve white wine, be like an art showing, art gallery. It ended up being thousands of people, so many people that they couldn't even get in. And we decided based on that we should do something, and that's why we're doing this weekend. In 2012, we brought out Bones Brigade, an autobiography, and we were fortunate enough to get it in the Sundance Film Festival. At the Sundance Film Festival, which takes place in January, you have 2 weeks. The film festival plays, your film plays about 8 times over those 2 weeks. And every time it shows, they asked all of us to come there, and we came there, showed the film, and then after the film, we got a question and answer with the audience. It was always really a lot of fun to do that with the audience, and we wanted to begin today's festivities by doing a Q&A. So we're gonna be passing around a mic in the audience. You guys can ask anything. We want to get going with you. We want to start this off in a good vibe. So whatever you guys have in your minds, whatever thoughts you might have, ask away, because we're here to let this thing rip. So thank you again for being here, and let's have a great day. Paul, do we have a mic?
Sure.
Oh,
yeah.
First up, just raise your hand, whoever wants to go.
All right.
Okay.
Hi, thanks again for this wonderful event. I have a list of questions, but I'm only going to ask this to Stacy right now. I was wondering, what do you think of Tony Hawk's impression of you?
Which one?
I was wondering what you think about when Tony Hawk does an impression of you.
You mean like the Halloween impression? Or the, hey man?
Yes.
Hey man, you can't ask a question like that with Stacy on stage, man.
Hey man, don't hey man me. I think my laugh probably let you know. I love when Tony does that. I also love when he gets dressed up with me as Halloween. Okay, there's a question back here. Get the mic back, right back there, Paul. You can yell the question too.
Show me. Where were you? Stand up.
All right, well, thanks so much for doing this for all of us folks who love growing up, watching you all. Wanted to ask what you all think of what you did back then and the culture you created versus kind of skateboarding now, and did you ever think it'd get to this point?
Who wants to start?
I think Rodney said.
You want to start, Rodney? Did you ever think it would get to this point? Did you ever think we'd ever be doing this?
Thank you so much for being here. Forgive, I'm not a morning. So did I ever think? I was always told if you skate, you turn into a bum. And quit wasting your time. And the fact that our community has grown in, so many of you, I met people that do the craziest things, on every level. You meet people at NASA, JPL, all over the place. Our culture, what skateboarding is, there's something special to it. When there's a director out here for movies and really big in music, and he comes from skateboarding. There's something so special about our community, I think, that lends itself to creativity in other worlds. So did I ever think it would get like this? No. Did I ever think that it would be a conduit so many gifted people to touch in a disproportionate way outside culture, where we have such influence in shaping culture? Never. And I couldn't be more proud to be part of this community. So.
To answer your question, not in the least. In fact, someone uncovered an interview with me from MTV in like '86, and they said, "Do you think you'll be skating in your 30s?" And I was like, "Yeah, I hope." And they said, "What about your 40s?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, that's not going to happen at all." So, if you're asking us if we thought we'd ever get this far or be able to still even be considered relevant and skating, it's all absurd. But I do feel like because skating has grown so much over these last 40 years, there's just more resources and more support to be able to do it into your adult life, into your responsible life. And it's more accepted than ever. I mean, I feel like I can generally speak for this generation of skaters that we were the scum of the earth, you know what I mean? We were like the outcasts, we were the nerds in school, we were bullied because we skated, and we persevered. And here we are, and I think we're all better for it. So I don't encourage bullying, I'm just saying that we lived through it, that's all.
And I'm still trying to figure out what I'm gonna do when I grow up as well, so I'll let you know.
I want to echo something that Lance said the other night. I think all of us feel really grateful that we're still here and that we're still able to be here, but most importantly, we're very grateful that we got born into the lives we got born into, because we didn't create this, but we got a chance to take a part in it. And I hope we've been really responsible with our parts, because we all feel that we're humbled by this experience. And again, grateful that all of you are here to share this, so thank you.
Tony actually nailed it right now. I remember growing up as a kid, and we used to be, skateboarding was a crime, and we always were looked down. And I just want to thank each one of you guys. I follow all you guys and what you guys have done and brought up skateboarding going forward. My question would be for you guys: how far you guys think you guys, now getting an age, are going to continue skating? And is there personal stuff going on where maybe you want to land something or learn something more?
Let's see, since me, Lance, and Cav are the elders of the group, Stacy and George, of course, we look to guys like Tony Alva and Mark Lake from Florida, and we're like, well, those dudes are older than us. Like, look at them, they're still doing backside airs, and who knows, I watch this guy and I'm like, okay, I'm older than him by a few years. Lance is still ripping. Yeah. What is it, Rod? Rod knows what I'm trying to say.
Are you sure? I can certainly answer something, but I'm sure.
All I can tell you, from my perspective, I never made any ultimatums. And so I just take it day by day, and I'm really happy to be able to skate at a level that I feel like is professional, but I'm not trying to push limits anymore. I fucked around and found out last year by breaking my leg, so that definitely gave me a very quick lesson in reality and accepting my age. And so now I've just kind of found a lane. But it's amazing to see. I mean, these guys are my inspiration. I'd say like Salva is our sort of beacon. He's still doing it, still limber, still skate back our pools. And it's just amazing to see that we all still have that passion and everyone's still pushing it to an extent, but not to the point where we're risking our future of being healthy, relatively healthy.
I believe everyone in this room will do it as long as they can find enjoyment in it, and that's what everyone in this room will do, and that's what we'll do, and we'll do it at the level we can, as high as level, and as that tapers down, when it's not enjoyable, then people will do something else. So we're going to do it for as long as.
On my end, if there is something that connects that way, very honestly, I reckon whatever powers I started to dwindle 20 years ago. And I felt myself it's connected. And then very rapidly, I also felt my body starting to decay. I just had both hit in place, like it was nuts, right? It's super cool to learn to walk again. My point is, when I was younger, I used to think, man, I will never suffer the indignity of stepping on a board and sucking, of being less than I was the day before, because that's the edge you have to drive you. And it's some stuff, I sobered up to that. You know what, no, just the gift to be able to roll around and feel that, man, that will be with me for as long, like, till I'm
I just want to make a comment, so...
Kevin Harris, ladies and gentlemen.
Kevin. I was up in Vancouver, Canada, doing kind of my best thing up there, being the Canadian champ guy kind of thing. Come down in 1982, and these guys are such an inspiration to me, being up in Vancouver. You know, took pictures of them, and just really looked up to everybody up there today. And when I came down in 1982, skateboarding was probably one of the worst stages that it's ever been. And I came down, and believe it or not, I rode for GNS at the time, but I was forced in, believe it or not, to a pro contest because there wasn't enough skaters to make the sponsored amps and the pro. So I'm nervous. I'm idolizing like these guys. Stacy Peralta is God to me. And I'm down in 1982. And here's how the ranking went. So these guys were all my heroes. I thought he wouldn't even make the cut. And it was Rodney Mullen first, Perry Wellender number 2, and me number 3. And I was like, holy crap, I couldn't believe it coming from Vancouver. Walking out of the parking lot, never forget this, remember the temperature in the air and everything would happen. Walking along, and again, these guys are my idols. And I see Tony in Stacy's Volvo, and I see all these guys, Caballero, Rodney Mullen, and Stacy goes, hey, you skated Brad today, you want to ride for the Vans Brigade? And I said, no. I said, are you kidding me? So my life, you guys, changed. It's always been an incredible life. My whole family's involved in skateboarding. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart what you guys have done and the inspiration you gave to the world. Thank you.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks so much first up for doing this. Like, I'm sure for many people in the room that grew up skateboarding, this is like if the Avengers were real and they were having a Q&A 30 years later. Like that's, especially from overseas, that's how we saw you guys. It was just incredible. I do want to give a special shout out to Tommy, who's very way out the back there. Because what you guys were doing, it was untouchable. Like I didn't even know where to go do it. But when Tommy did the board slide in Future Primitive, it was like, let's go get the skateboard and go do. Like that was like one of the most inspiring things I think for a generation of skateboarders who were in nowhere to do that. So shout out to Tommy because. The question I'd like to ask is, what for each of you guys is your like quintessential Vans Brigade video part? Like what was your contribution to whatever video that you're like, that's my mantelpiece part? And for you guys, George and Stacy, what's your favorite video and like why? What it did for the company and for skateboarding? So yeah, thanks so much. This is really sweet. Cheers.
None of my parts I don't really care about, but my favorite is Lance's from the Vans Brigade video show. When he's just cruising around and having fun, that made it's the same thing. Like, I want to go skate, because when you watch that part, it's just pure joy. It's just pure fun. It's access to the streets. You don't have to have a ramp. You don't have to have a park. You don't have to have money except for to buy a board. Go out your door and there's your skate park. And that was the beauty of street skating. It was accessible to everyone. And that was cool. It's kind of, you know, the equalizer.
Steve, I actually want to add something to what Tommy just said, because Lance's part in that video, just skating through the streets, was a mistake. It wasn't planned. And that video informed us what it wanted to be. And here's what I mean by this. The first thing we ever shot was Steve Caballero, Mike McGill, and Lance at Lance's ramp. And we just happened to have tape left over from the day. And so we decided we'd put the camera in the back of my Volvo, put the cameraman back there, and have these guys skate down the street. Well, we shot all this random footage of them skating down the street, just goofing off and having fun. We went back to my house and looked at the footage. We looked at all the stuff at the ramp, and then we looked at the stuff of these guys goofing in the street and went, this stuff's magic. This is the gold, not the other stuff. And that led us to understand that we can't forget that skateboarding is just a fun thing to do. You don't have to be on a ramp, you can just be in the street. And that was the impetus for Lance running around. So it informed us.
So back to your Avengers comment, I'm Batman. No, as far as the video part, probably wasn't Powell Peralta Bones Brigade video. Sorry, Stace. But my most proud is the Bones Bearing video, class of 2000. 23 years ago was pretty much my last video part, and I think that's the one I'm most proud of because it shows my overall skateboarding, not just vert, but street too. So.
I'd have to say, you know, probably, we had fun in a lot of the videos, and we gave Stacy a lot of crap for a lot of years. Sorry, Stace.
It never stops.
Yeah. But, you know, Animal Chin, getting back to that, it was just so fun for us. I mean, like, we did things that we never did before, and we only skated that ramp for, 2 days or something. And what blew me away probably the most about that is watching our teammate, Tommy Guerrero, shred like all of us. We're like, how can he skate like that? He's from the city, he's got no ramps in his yard, and does like giant slaw bears like this high out, and like, yeah. Anyway, Tom, hats off to you, buddy.
I just mentioned this to him right now, and my favorite video part, which actually finally sold my board, was Frankie Hill's part right there. Frankie Hill. He sold my family board like killer.
Lance, you're the man, dude.
I think in terms of Bones Brigade videos, my favorite was Ban This, just because I put the most effort into it. Stacy and Stessa came to my house and lit up my hillside to the point where there were neighbors calling the cops saying that an alien spaceship had landed on the mountain. I'm not kidding, that happened. And the cops showed up because they had to light it so brightly because they were using those high-speed cameras. But I had never worked so hard, and we were shooting all night for like 3 nights, and then over to the Fallbrook ramp. I mean, that whole part was less than 5 days, and I was never so exhausted. But when I saw the finished product, I was really proud of it. So thank you, Stacey.
My favorite video is probably Future Primitive, and one of my favorite sequences is the black and white segment of Ray Barbie, Steve Size, and Eric Sanderson. And the reason I like it so much is because it's a group of skateboarders skating throughout the city, just having fun, just having a great time. And the spirit of that piece was, to me, what skateboarding was all about.
Hi guys, I just wanted to say thank you for inspiring not only me, but everyone here, and we all can agree that skateboarding wouldn't even be here without all of you. And you inspire me every single day in my life, inside and out of skateboarding. Who is your favorite skateboarder, and how did it inspire you throughout your life?
I want to go first so that I can claim Rodney Mullen. And then I get him, and no one else gets him. I mean, Rodney, it's crazy. Back in our day, there was the bowl contest and there was the freestyle contest. So loosely vert and street, but not street because it was freestyle. And nobody watched the freestyle events. Kevin knows what I'm talking about. But when they would say, next up is Rodney Mullen, everyone stopped what they were doing from everywhere else in the area and came and watched, because we didn't understand it, but we knew it was something innovative and spectacular, and he was gonna be flawless. And so we just had this feeling about it. And then as Rodney and I got to know each other, I mean, I learned finger flip airs because of him. And so we're all, you know, skateboarding is better for his contributions, and the fact that we can walk down the street now and say, do a kickflip, and people know what it is crazy, but that's because of him.
The reciprocity, all growing up especially. Here I am, I'm just skating in a barn in Florida, right? I come out a couple times a year, a few times, and staying at Stacy's, the inspiration, and then likewise going and being at Tony's place for those Del Mar contests in particular. I still go back to the inspiration of really everyone, but Tony in particular. Airwalks, right? Watching you do that and me like, how can I do that? It was right back and forth, the inspiration we got from each other, much less on every end of it, like contest after contest. That stuff wears on you because you love skateboarding, but then contests can tug you, best in show, right? It's not you anymore, it's for them, in a sense, right? For a number. And there was a time of holding on to titles or whatever, it blurred the love I had for skateboarding for a little bit. And Tony going to Tony, another time too, very similar. He steadied me because he'd walked that same path. So if anything, just being on the Bones Brigade, that inspired us to other levels. To everywhere you look, people were sort of breaking the rules. They were doing what people thought was impossible. But as the years continue to go, like do a kickflip, okay, that was an accident, I did it, sure. But Tony's video games, that's what embedded into the vocabulary of the general populace, what he has done for skateboarding, not just for his gifts and his endurance and all that it takes, but just being the person he is too. So, if anything, that's Tony.
Thank you, Ronnie.
It's hard to say because it's era specific. You know, there's always generations where, you know, growing up in the 70s, Stacy, Tony Alva, Shogo Kubo, right? But I think overall, I'd have to say Mark Gonzalez because of his contribution to our culture, where he stepped out of every norm and he brought in so much creative energy to it that it just like blew everybody's mind. And I skated with him all the time. He'd come up and stay with me. He'd go out skating all night long and I'd be worried, like, where the fuck is Mark? You know, I thought he's like dead in the streets because San Francisco, you know, it's a little sketchy. So he'd come back at 3 in the morning. I'm like, where were you? He's like, skating? Wow, and he probably learned and invented 20 new tricks. So for me, it's got to be Mark Gonzalez.
Can I just tell you that he texted me yesterday a video of him doing a frontside cap to nose blunt on a curb. I was like, I'm trying to learn these on that crazy board on the crazy curb in New York. That was yesterday.
I guess for me, I was like 10 years old when I started skating in a little town in Florida, and my dad got me like these posters and this one skater was on my ceiling, and I would stare at it at night, and I was like, wow, that guy is so good. I would love to meet him one day. And believe it or not, when I was 13, I got to visit him in California, and that was Stacy Peralta. And after I got on the Bones Brigade, he really was my favorite. So. But I just want to say, through those earlier years, Stacy brought us to the factory where George was slaving away over there. And George brought us to this skate park, Sparks Galita in Santa Barbara. And I was like, Stace, is George gonna skate with us? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, how cool. And George came out on his roller skates, but no, it was fine because he was skating with it. I'm just stoked that we're skating with the manufacturer that supports all of us. And thank you, George, for everything you've done.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to ditto that one, actually, sorry. Yeah, when I started skateboarding, I skated with guys that were 4 and 5 years older than me. And skateboarding was Ed Nadelin, Russ Howell, and Skitch Hiscock. And they were very talented guys that were older than me. And they did massive amounts of 360s and nose wheelies and handstands, and I tried to play along with them. I knew it was what I wanted to do, but I was kind of no good at it. And then Stacy Peralta and his crew, Alva and Jay, I'm going to add Wally, Tom in a way in there. They came with this other thing that I saw that you could just kind of fly off of a curb and you could try to hit a bank, and it was more of an aggressive, emotional thing than a technical thing. And I was so into them that these older guys were like, you're such a poser. Why are you trying to be those dudes? And I always thought that, we used to play Cowboys and Indians. You guys used to play football. I remember you saying Lynn Swan or something, and I'm like, that's what we're doing. We're playing skateboarding, and I'm playing these dudes. And I met Stacy in 1977 at a local skate park, and I had his board. You don't know. I had his board. I had his shirt. I had the orange, the yellow, and the red colorway. My sister was there, and my sister, remember that day, going, you caught his eye. We had this dream. That it's gonna happen. He saw you or whatever. I was 13, and years later, it became very more competitive, and you had to prove yourself through competition. And I wasn't going to prove myself maybe in that competition because I was a little bit older. But in my heart, I always knew why I fell in love with skateboarding, and I knew that if you're going to do this as a professional, all you have to do is make people fall in love with skateboarding. And then the industry will want you. And it was because of the images and the photos and the things that you guys had. Albert never won a pool contest. There was no contest for him to prove that he was the best in a pool. I didn't really see it that way. I fell in love with his imagery, so I think I had that lesson. And so when I finally came to the point where I could be part of it, I knew that was really my job, is to make people fall in love with skateboarding. And I would say the next guy that was really the most important person that drove me what I liked about skateboarding was Neil Blender. Thank you, Stace. I don't think anyone talks about it, or he doesn't talk about it, how important of a skateboarder he was, rather than just a dude that made this happen. He was the best skateboarder. He was the one that said, I'm gonna go be a professional, do demos everywhere. My wife saw him do a demo when she was 13, a Pepsi demo. Yeah, everyone saw you skate. You went and you said, to make this work, we have to be professionals. And that was a piece of it. And Tony went and said, you have to tell everybody that you're the best. And Jay was just a nutcase. And a mixture of all that is the foundation of what we do.
quick side note, because of what Lance talked about, I seen Stacy, I met him actually, I think it was 76 at a contest in San Francisco. I was either 9 or 10. And at the time, we had seen the cover of the Skateboarding magazine, right? The iconic 360 with the hair. I seen it in real life in 1976, and it fucking blew my mind. And I was like, it's that guy who's on the cover of that magazine. Because we just got hip to know it was at Fort Mason, not the Cow Palace one. So I came up and I introduced myself as a little kid, and you came over because I was able to do a bunch of 360s when I was young. You're like, wow, man, that's pretty cool. And I was just like, totally blown away. So we had a connection a very long time ago.
Actually, can I jump in on this? Because we've all had these strange synergistic run-ins. Rodney, correct me if I'm wrong, but you and I crashed into each other 2 years before we met, right? I was doing demos in Florida, and I was going down this snake run, and Rodney and I crashed. He's a little kid. I think I've heard him. I'm going, oh my God, are you okay? He's okay. I go meet his mother. I have no idea that this kid is in my future, and he would be, just based on that. I ran into Lance. I almost put Lance on the team a year before I put him on the team, or 2 years before, but I had a kid named Scott Foss on the team. The moment I saw George, I've never even told you this, I had a mystical moment the first time I ever saw George Powell. It was Thanksgiving morning of 1977, and I was skateboarding at Cantor Canyon School at 11 a.m. in the morning because I wanted to get ready for the food coma that I would blast off in later that day. So I'm skating with a bunch of kids at Cantor Canyon, and I took a break, and I'm sitting on the bank wall, and I look down the schoolyard, and I see this guy in his 30s climbing over the fence with his 7-year-old son. I don't know who he is, I've never seen him. And as he gets closer to me, I'm looking at him going, I know that guy. Like, I just knew him. I was looking at him going, how do I know him? I'd never met him before in my life, and somehow I knew him. And we met each other that day, we became friends that day, and then about 6 months later, I met him in Europe. We ran into each other at a trade show in a, what do you call in a stairwell that was completely off the beaten path. And we ran into each other, and I said, what are you doing here? He goes, what are you doing here? And he goes, well, I'm gonna go have lunch and have a beer. You wanna join me? We sat down, and that's the first time we sat down and said, why don't we do something together? And that was it. It was all this synergy that all of us somehow were going to eventually get together, and it all came together. But there was, at times, little mystical aspects to this whole thing. So, and it's still, the other night, I was saying this yesterday, I was sitting across from McGill the other night at dinner, and I said, my God, this wave that we caught decades ago, we're still on it. We're still riding this wave. It hasn't broken yet. It's kind of amazing. None of us expected this. We're all grateful it's happened, so.
So back to the synergy that Stacy's talking about. Yes, Skateboarder Magazine was our only access to skateboarders, and what we saw, what influenced me, and definitely Stacy Peralta was one of the top skateboarders at that time. And I was riding, I would say 1978, I was riding for a skateboard park called Campbell Skatepark in Northern California. And we came down to Southern California to Escondido and heard that Stacy Peralta and Steve Cathay were gonna be one of the judges of the contest. And so the Campbell Skatepark team came down and we entered the contest. My teammate Clay Townsend got first place. I ended up getting 5th place. And then after the contest, Stacy Peralta comes up to both of us and says, hey, I really like the way you guys skate. I'm gonna be starting this team. I'd like for you guys to join this team. And I looked at Stacy and I go, well, can I go home and ask my mom first? Because I was only 14 years old, so I couldn't just give him an answer. And Stacy says, yeah, I'm gonna be up at Winchester Skate Park for a pro contest that you skated in, and it's a month from now, and you can, dwell on it and ask your parents, and then give me an answer there. And I was already ready to say yes then. But when he came up a month later, I told Stacy, yes, my parents are allowing me to join this company that you're doing. It's gonna be called Powell Peralta, which I didn't know anything about. riding for a company. I rode for a skate park. So after that, that was 1979, and I've been riding for this company ever since then.
Just very quick, because I hadn't even thought of it until Stacy mentioned this. So when you think of all the interactions, like meeting you or different characters, right? How all of these little intangibles, these things through time add up in some weird, call it mystical way to converge, punctuate, and then change the course of your life. So I was supposed to give up skating, I was, I think, 13, and at the end of the summer, and grow up for the next year of school. And so that was laid down, and for whatever reason, Stacy Peralta, who'd been on my wall, I had his board, my parents knew, you plowed into me 2 years prior, and were a gentleman at my mom. And he called my house. Were it to be anybody else, had it not been the legacy of who you were to me, I don't think my parents would have ever agreed. And I was still supposed to quit skating, even though I came out, to enter that contest. And I remember in my heart, I won the contest, however, little kid points. And I didn't even think I was on the Bones Brigade because it was so untouchable. And we were on our way to the airport in your blue Volvo. And Stacy gave me this patch, Bones Brigade patch. And I couldn't even understand, does this mean I'm on the team, you know? And even though I thought it was gonna have to end, I was gonna hold on to that belt like a little shrine, because then I did have to quit. But it was because of you later on, because of the energy, I wouldn't have even continued skateboarding were it not for that, so.
I just want to add, if you give me a second, I want to add something to something Lance said. Lance mentioned my professionalism. A lot of people have said I took skateboarding very seriously, and I did take skateboarding very seriously, but it wasn't because of professionalism. My parents put a bigger premium on working, on getting a job than on education. I had a really lousy education. But I worked since I was a little kid. I mowed lawns, got a job as a paperboy at 11, a job as a food prep at 14, a job as a busboy at 16. I've always literally been employed. So what happened was I had the context to understand when GNS came to me, Gordon Smith, and said, we're gonna pay you 50 cents a board and put your name on that board. And if we make 20,000 boards of yours a month, you're gonna get paid 10 grand a month. To me, I had scored the lottery. This is the greatest job in the world. And so I understood I had a responsibility to myself and that company and the sport. And that's the thing I wanted these guys to understand is, I'm gonna take a line. If you wanna be a kid forever, you gotta grow up. And that's what this whole thing was about. If you can be a kid for the rest of your life, but you gotta grow up and take seriously what you're doing. And when I see these guys and how well they've done their entire lives, they pulled it off. And that's what this whole thing has been about, is living your best year. I'm a 16-year-old kid, and I've been 16 my whole life, and that's the way I live my life. And I think I can say the same thing for these guys, George included. We're still doing what we love doing because we've grown up.
I just want to echo the sentiment of everybody in this room and just say that we're just eternally grateful for everything you guys have done for the sport, and just for being the icons and the people that you are and how you affected all of our lives. You know, I'm 52, almost 53 years old. Most of you guys are just a few years old above me. But this is geeking me out, making me a fanboy, and bringing me back to 85, you know, when I was just 13, 14 years old. And now my son, 15, I'm trying to pass that on to him, you know, and get him excited about skating like I was. I grew up in Fresno, so there wasn't a whole lot. You guys are skating in NorCal and Southern California. Of course, there's no cell phones, and all we had was, you know, Transworld and Thrasher to know where you guys were. So I'm at the Arc, you know, or some ramp, and yeah, I remember seeing Tony that we were so stoked when you showed up. We're sitting there cranking Faction and just rocking out, you know, but we just live for, we'd read these ads and find out, okay, you're gonna be at the Manchester Mall in Fresno on this date, and we'd show up and just religiously and just couldn't wait, you know, the artwork that you guys made it iconic on the boards and on the t-shirts, you know, we gobbled it up, and that's just how we all became a big family, right? And so we're just eternally grateful for that and how this all launched. There was no internet, there wasn't a way to get this across other than the written word, and you know, we were gobbling up those magazines and liquor stores and stuff, just keeping up with you guys, so that's awesome. But I guess I wanted to, you know, talk mostly about what it was like being a little kid. I mean, Tony, your dad's taking you out to Japan, and you know, you guys were traveling all over the United States and up and down, at least California, in the early beginnings, doing these demos and things like that. How much pressure, when you guys showed up at these demos, we all wanted to believe that you just were there and you couldn't wait to put on a show for us, and we're just wide-eyed, just couldn't wait to see you guys do tricks. But how much pressure was there? Did you guys, you know, feel like you were just obligated, or was it actually fun?
It was always fun. I think we were just so focused and hungry to skate. If it was a new place, new terrain, let's go get it, let's go after it, let's eat it up. It never felt like it was a compromise or a job, even in the worst terrain, because we grew up skating some of the worst parks. I mean, you know, we've definitely romanticized them, but people say, like, why don't you build Del Mar again? You would hate Del Mar. It was kinked, the coping was ground, there was only one wall that was even skatable. So in those days, we learned to skate everything. So when we would show up at a place and just skate a couple jump ramps in the parking lot, cool, because we got to connect with other skaters. So for us, it was super fun, and I feel like none of us had aspirations of fame or fortune or world travel. And that was just sort of imposed on us, and we were like, cool, new places to skate.
You know, Tom, can you tell these guys like what our exclusive jump ramp tour would go like when you got there? Just let them, because I've heard it before and I think they'd like it. Tell them.
He's talking about tour. I've spent a lot of time on the road. Actually, I was speaking with Kevin Harris yesterday, and it's funny going through these old tour books that somebody had, and it seemed as though I was on every single tour. It was somebody would leave, you know, 3 people would leave, Tommy's still on the tour. 3 people would leave, I'm still on the tour. And I was like, that's why my knees are hurt. So, you know, there was times when you would show up, like we'd be on the road for all summer, usually in the States, and then we'd go overseas. But you'd show up to some of these spots and, you know, these shops, and all they had was like, you know, PVC pipe, part of a telephone pole, 3 curves, and you know, and then the jump ramp that we had put on top of George's like country Squire that we drove across the country, usually in the wrong direction, trying to get to the demo. Rodney knows what I'm talking about. And so, you know, you lift this huge jump ramp off on the ground, and it was like a show, you know. It's like, all right, perform. Like, all right, here we go. And you know, it was always super fun, but the next day, and then the next day, and the next day, and at some point in time, the accumulation of like the road burn and the physical wear, it was difficult. That's when you're like, oh, right, this is a job. But it's a job that you love more than anything, and you'll do whatever you can to keep it, that's for sure. But yeah, we skated some pretty interesting stuff on the road. I'll just say that.
I just want to add one thing. These guys all took what they did very seriously, and they gave the audiences a lot. But Tony wins the prize, because there was one day, there was a quarter pipe / jump ramp, and the little kids were just saying 540, 540, do a 540. And Tony, hearing the kids, said, I'm gonna figure out how to do this. He did a 540 on a jump ramp. I mean, it was the most amazing thing. And he landed it crouched, but it shows the commitment that these guys made to pleasing these young kids that we would come up against. And that to me was the epitome, is the 540 on the jump ramp.
Okay, I'll ask one about George, to get George in on the question. So could you share your fondest memory of your early days with the Bones Brigade?
Touring was not something that I grew up doing. This is something that Stacy introduced me to, and I became familiar with the guys and what they needed, and vehicles and things that we could figure out how to travel with. Built a portable ramp that the guys skated, towed behind a a big truck. And my experience really was just the joy and the excitement that these guys brought to the kids that were there. Because, you know, traveling as a team, as a band, whatever, it's work. It's like, tonight I'm here, tomorrow night I'm there, it's another hotel, this one wasn't so good. But when it comes time to perform and actually do something, these guys did it. They really put up with all the difficulties of doing what they did. And for me to experience that and to see them do it, and stand on the side and take pictures of them or try to, that was really, it was a new part of my life that I didn't know anything about. So I'm grateful for that, because without that, you don't have the excitement to know why you need to make this board a little bit wider, or this shape has to change a little bit, or you know, the wheels aren't working right. And as a designer, that really drives me forward. That's what I love doing. Skating for me when I started was, as Stacy said, almost a mystical experience. I saw one kid in Santa Monica riding on a 2x4 with roller skates, and my eyes went like this, and I went home and built one. And I skated it until my roller skates died. The 2x4 was trash, and I didn't skate for another 5 years, and then I skated in college. And for me, skating was always about the experience. It's just fun. And if anything, that's what I try very hard to portray in our current company, is that skateboarding is about fun. It isn't necessarily about doing 20-step rails or killing yourself. It's about just doing what really is cool and you enjoy. So the experience of skateboarding and then seeing these guys transcend the difficulties and bring it to you, that was really important to me.
Hello, I just want to repeat, as everybody said, thank you all for coming together. One place, one time for our benefit. It's a very surreal feeling to have you all in front of us. And one topic that did come up earlier was just the creative aspect, all the innovation that was happening at the time when you all were inventing all these brand new tricks. Some of these tricks you would even take ownership of. Cab with the Caballerial, McGill with the McTwist. So I was thinking, were there ever any tricks that maybe you were kind of not as proud of or didn't want to be associated with? Because there could be a stigma with that, especially if the trick is maybe not labeled or branded as being cool. And as somebody who's been trying a lot of the tricks that you all invented, I just want to know, which one maybe I should stay away from.
Have you ever seen a picture of me do a roast beef? That's the one you'll never see me do.
Everyone's gonna say the roast beef.
Well, probably frontside rocks. I tried everything. I tried sticking my tongue out. It doesn't work for me.
I would say avoid cannonballs. They're not pretty. Sack tap, that's one I'm not so proud of, but I thought it was really funny and I put it in the video game, and because they put it in the video game, I had to learn it. So it was literally like, this would be a funny thing, and then watch what you wish for, because then it was a special trick. Then I'd go to a demo and be like, do that trick. Oh, I gotta figure it out, okay. But then Bob Burnquist does it better than me, and I let him have it.
I just want to say, the beauty about skateboarding is it's our way to express our individuality. So like, you can take a common trick like a frontside grind and just get anybody to try it. They're gonna paint a different picture of the frontside grind, and that's up to the individual. And I always felt like, the type of skating that I like to do is I'd rather have quality over quantity. And that's why I loved Christian Hosoi so much, because he did minimal tricks, but he did them the most beautiful. So everyone, has their thing, so, if I try frontside grind, instead of going 2 blocks, I want to go 8 blocks. If I do an air, instead of going a foot, I want to go 8 foot, So you can just take a real simple trick and make it as beautiful as you can as an individual. And that's what I love about skateboarding. There's no rules to what the skateboard trick is supposed to look like. It's up to you to do that. And all these guys up here have added a flavor to a certain trick, which maybe call it their own, but it made it their style. If you see a person's style of a trick, you can see that. Even in a picture, a silhouette, what skater that is. And that's the beauty about skateboarding. It's at its purest art form.
Nose pick with a cobra.
I want to actually, go ahead, Rodney, go ahead.
I was going to say, Stevie's frontside handplants for me, just that image,
I wanted to add a little context. Again, I'm going to add some Bones Brigade trivia, but what many people don't understand is when we were building this team, we did not know if skateboarding was going to stick around. Remember, it came and went in 1964, 65. So during the late 70s, we had a black cloud over our head the whole time, thinking this thing could collapse, and it did have a near-death experience in the early 80s, as many of you may know. But when George and I first got together, we were aware that skateboarding was a Southern California-centric thing. Every manufacturer existed there, or 99% of them. All the media existed there. All the contest series existed there. And we knew that if we didn't create a team that represented the country, that we were never going to represent skaters around the country. And so we set out to build a team that was based on making champions in other states. No other company had done this. And that required getting behind amateurs like these guys who were not yet pros, supporting them in the hopes that they would become the next pros. And so Rodney, Florida, McGill, Florida, Alan Gelfand, Florida, Lance, Los Angeles, Tony, San Diego, Tommy, Bay Area, Steve, Bay Area. So this was the first national team that existed. And then we had Ray Underhill in Tennessee, Jamie Godfrey, New Jersey. So the whole point of it was to expand what we were doing so that we could represent the sport properly. And I just wanted to add that to the context of this.
Speaking of Ray Underhill, we have Olivia Underhill is here. I don't see her right now, but she came. She wanted to be part of this, so say hi to. Oh, right there, on the red. If you want a new tattoo, she's living in LA doing tattoos. There's your plug, Olivia.
All right, I got you right here, fellas. First time caller. Growing up in the era that I did, we grew up with things like May the Force be with you, Leave the Gun, Take the Cannoli, and Have You Seen Him? It's right there. So, and I did want to say big up to Ray Underhill, and we miss him, but I was wondering if there are any particular moments you can think of that were like evolutionary moments that you recognized at the time. Like the first time you saw someone with a hand moment, oh, okay, this is different. Or, because I know like the Ollie, it kind of took a little bit to kind of take a hold, but were there specific moments where you saw a trick or a skater or somebody that you just went, game changer, this is different now? Thank you.
Well, when I discovered the sealed bearing, because the wheels that I rode when I first started skating, the ball bearings were held on by a nut only. So if you put a wheel on, you put the bearings in the wheel, try to put it on the truck as quick as you could so they would fall out, and then put the other ball bearings in and then tighten it down. And that's what a skateboard wheel was like. So, you know, going down the driveway and the wheel will roll off and the ball bearings fall out, you know, you spent like 15 minutes trying to get the ball bearings back into the wheel. But when I heard that there was a wheel or a bearing sealed that you could put in a wheel, that's when I knew that skateboarding has progressed.
I'll jump in really quick. Tony took a long time to develop as a kid, as a skater, okay? Didn't know if he was going to, but he was incredibly tenacious. Showed up everywhere, was fierce in competition, but it took him a long time. When I made the first skateboard video, I went down to the Del Mar Skateboard Park, and I had not seen Tony skate in probably 3 or 4 months, and he had grown a little bit. And this is the first time I had ever seen the airwalk. And I was absolutely so completely floored. I'd never seen anything like it. I had never thought of a trick like that. I never even thought a person would think of a trick like that. And then he followed it that day with the finger flip. And he was skating so strong and so fiercely that it was shocking. Well, after we got done shooting the video that day, I took him out to lunch, and I sat across from him at the table. And I said, Tony, and I believe this is right, you correct me if I'm wrong. I said, Tony, I think your time has come. I think that next year you have the ability to win every single contest you enter. And that actually happened, if I'm not mistaken.
I didn't believe it, but he did say that. Yeah, we were at McDonald's.
Well, okay, stay with me. No, we were at that coffee shop place.
What's that?
We were at that coffee shop place near Del Mar.
Oh, Denny's.
Yes.
But anyway, there were 2 options at Del Mar, Denny's and McDonald's.
No,
Denny's was closer.
Check it out. I say this really important thing to Tony. You have the ability to win every contest. His response? Just looks at me, doesn't say a word.
What do you say? Stacy Peralta.
And I'm thinking, does he think I'm an idiot? Does he not believe me? Forever I've thought like, wow, did that ever register?
It was just more in shock that someone of your caliber could even recognize me. I remember the first time Stacy ever actually talked to me. We were at Upland. I was skating from Dogtown, and I was sitting in the stands with a few friends, and Stacy came up and said, hey Tony, how's it going? I was like, he knows my name, what's going on? And then he said, how's Dogtown treating you? And I was like, good. I had no context. There was no bar set for how I got skateboards. That's how they were treating me. I said, good, I guess. He's like, cool. And I looked at my friend, I go, what did that mean? He's like, I don't know. It was crazy. I guess to chime in on what I saw, the first time I ever saw Eddie Alguera in the magazine was my epiphany moment when I thought, wow, you can do so much more with the skateboard. And he was doing tricks that had never been done. He had an interview at Colton. Frontside rock, Gariel. He did a backside air and his foot came off by accident, and in the sequence he put it back on. That was the spark for an airwalk, so thanks to Eddie Alguera for that.
One more is the first time I saw Mike McGill do the 540, I didn't even know what I saw. I needed to see it a number of times just to understand what he was doing. It was such a shocking thing, and like the airwalk, it was a trick that you can't believe someone even thought of doing. How do you even think about that, let alone do it? And McGill's always done it, in my opinion, the best, because he goes upside down. So that was a shocker.
My fondest memory of a trick is the ollie air, which was invented, you guys know, by who? There you go. The guy who brought me to Stacy's house. Okay, so we were skating ramps in South Florida, and I don't know if you know about this, Rodney, but there was a guy that was watching us and watching Alan do these ollie airs out of the ramp, and he's like, come on, what's the trick? He's got there his shoes glued on, is it Velcro? The guy just couldn't, and when you would watch Alan do this, you're just like, how, it's amazing. If you've ever seen videos on YouTube of him, the initial ones, just blew us all away. And then, of course, you know, Rodney took it to a whole nother level.
Now I go to Big Twist in Sweden.
Well, what do you want me to say? Okay, well, a lot of people ask me this, and Stacy has featured it before in our documentary and all, but people are like, well, what gave you the idea, you know? And I had done really well in some contests in Florida, and George and Stacy said, where do you want to go for Christmas break? And I was like, yes, I'm going to go see my teammate in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I want to skate those pools. And there was this guy named Fred Blood, a roller skater there. Him and Duke Rennie, and I think Duke Rennie, George sponsored for roller skaters. And we didn't, you know, those are the only 2 guys we would even let skate with us, because they would go up like a backside air, they would actually try to grab. So we're like, all right, that's cool. They're actually trying to skate. And I saw Fred Blood come up and do a 540, like 3-4 feet out, and came down. And I just thought, man, that's so unfair. Like, nah, that's got to be impossible because the board's just going to flip around. It's just not going to work. And then 6 months later, Rodney and Lance Mullen, sorry, what am I talking about? Lance Mullen. That could be a new trick, Rodney, for you. We went to a summer camp in Sweden that Stacy and Alan went first off, and then Cab and I went the year before. And anyway, we skated for three weeks. We had 50 or 60 skaters that we would teach, and most of them didn't speak English. We just, you know, did hand maneuvers and whatever. One night, I said, I think I'm gonna try this trick, and there was only 2 kids on the ramp, and I taped my wrist guards, and I just thought if I could just come around, I would be safe, you know, I could knee slide out. And within 35 minutes, I made this trick, which a lot of my friends don't believe me, but it was 35 minutes. And I had to do it out, and then I went to go, we had no, by the way, your son, he knows there's no video cameras, there was nothing, you know. So these kids, I went to like, what did it look like? They took off back to the camp because they were so freaked out, and told Lance, and Lance, you know, the story most of you guys know, came back and was like, thought I was gonna do it low, but I knew I couldn't do it low. And he immediately tried to do it and killed himself on top of the ramp the first time. So the next day, he's like, we gotta do this for George and Stacy. We gotta put it in the what was that called? The intelligence report. We had no sequential camera. He just had his little still camera, and he made me do it like 36 times in the same spot, and then he put it together to make the twist. Yeah, that's it.
One of the first game changers that I had kind of seen, I knew was going to usher in a new era of skateboarding, was when Nadas was trying a rail. It was at a contest, and he was sort of playing around with it. He was olling off the stage and kicking his board at it. And most of us didn't know what he was trying to do. Like, was he trying to ollie over the rail to flat? Didn't quite get it, because no one had ever seen anyone do it, ever. And once I seen that, and then he started landing on it in a board slide position, he didn't make it. That was it. I was like, oh, wow, it's gonna get really hard for me. That's when I knew things were changing.
I just want to say something. This is an inside joke, but I'll share it with you guys because I think it's hilarious. Mike was talking about fixing his wrist guards when he was going to do a twist. There's a sound that we all make when we see each other, and like I hear it from a mile away. It's like when if your dad has a whistle or something, you know it's your dad's whistle, and we go, and that is the sound of Mike adjusting his wrist guards. And it's the sound of the Bones Brigade. We all know it, we all hear it, and we identify each other with it. There you go, there's your inside joke. That was the game changer.
Hey, Tony, my mom made that up.
She did?
When she wanted to get my attention, she'd be like,
but then we took it, I remember us doing.
But yeah, that's where that came from.
It evolved.
It did.
Hey, Christian, I know, exactly. I didn't know it came from the wrist guard.
Next question. Hi. I used to film a lot of the contests in the 70s and 80s here in Southern California and skate the NSA contests with several people. And in the 90s, when I left California and moved to Colorado, I just saw all these skaters over there, and I was thinking, well, they just had a couple of small parks out there. Skateboarding's not so popular out here. And I was so wrong when I got there, and I couldn't believe the influence that the Bones Brigade team had outside of the small home of Southern California. And that's when I realized how big it was getting in the early 90s. Sometimes you don't know what you have until you step out of it and you see how it impacts other parts of the world or the country. And I'm just curious, by a show of hands out here, how many of you came from out of state today just to be here and see these guys? That's amazing. So that's a real testament to the legacy you guys have brought to us, and from my heart, I just want to say thank you for everything and all the years of what you do. Thank you.
Yeah, and Liz, thank you for documenting so much of it in the early days.
You're welcome.
I have a question. With the phones of today, what would you guys rather have done? Sign posters in the early days, because you all travel the world and you're always signing posters, and then today, taking selfies, taking pictures, signing boards, signing everything that everybody brings up. I was just curious what your best years were. Is it easy with phones, or is it harder?
I'm just thankful there were no phones for our antics in the 80s.
Quick shout out to Steve Van Doren right here. He's been a great help to all of us. Steve's one of the angels of skateboarding. This guy and his father were the first to recognize us outside of skateboard companies, and he's been with us every step of the way, so big heart in this guy. And he's not even a skater himself, but he's got a skater's heart.
My question actually leads off of kind of what Steve just said, but we've kind of been talking about it over the weekend, but this is kind of the only, we call it a discipline, an art, sport, lifestyle, that I couldn't help but wonder how many signatures, I mean all of you guys, but you had to do even just last week, last year, a lifetime. So my question was, have any of you documented how many you've ever had to do in just a year, Tony? That goes
That's
for
like counting how many blinks you do a day.
Exactly. So, because we thought about other sports. We'll take a professional athlete, star quarterback. They might do it for their career, and they probably do it throughout their life a little bit, maybe on a jersey or two that they've used, but nothing, I can't imagine any other job out there in the world that has required as many John Hancocks as you guys. And so,
I know that I've signed less signatures than I've mailed. I've signed less signatures than I've mailed. I've fallen more times than I've signed.
Look good, so Lance did anything for us when it came to videos.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. I'm in the process of working on a personal documentary and also a book as well.
There's a project in Hollywood, it may not have, there's interest, I should say, in taking the documentary and turning it into a scripted television series. Don't know if it's going to happen, but I just wanted to say that there's a lot of talk about it, so that's a possibility.
Okay, me again, sorry. I'm from NorCal. Just want to thank Steve, Tommy, and Tony for your contribution to the N-Men movie that came out not too long ago, if anybody hasn't seen that yet. And I wanted to actually pivot back to Stacy and George. I personally took some time away from skateboarding and I missed a whole bunch, but when I came back about 10 years ago, all the reissues had been out and it felt like I was in a time warp. And I never knew that Stacy left Powell Peralta, and I was wondering what was the reason, how did you come back, and can you tell us how that happened?
After I did Dogtown and Z-Boys, these guys asked me to a meeting at the Los Angeles International Airport. We met in the restaurant. Again, this has been a long time, but correct me if I'm wrong. And they said, look, we really like the film you made. We feel we have a legacy too. Would you consider making a Bones Brigade documentary? So that was then. About a year or two later, Lance called me and said, hey, there's a tremendous demand for our reissues, but we don't want to do it without you. Would you consider doing it? And there's something, I don't know what it is, but it's always Lance that kind of gets inside of me. And I just said yes, and I wasn't expecting to say yes. And then about 4 years later after that, again, Lance called me and he said, look, we really want to do this documentary. And he goes, I need to tell you something. And I go, what's that? He goes, we are now older than you and Tony Alva were when you made Dogtown. And it didn't make any sense to me to think that these guys could ever be older than us. And that's the thing that got me to go, maybe I should make this film. So those two things, and George and I patched things up, and which has been a good thing. It's been a really good experience.
Is this on? It's for Tony. Tony, the way you guys, I was excited about tonight because I know I was excited to meet Stacy Peralta. On the way here, or as it approached, I remember my first memory of him on a rolling pin board in his bedroom in Channel 5 News, where someone came out to the house and interviewed. What's that? But I was in Woodward, Virginia, and Tony Hawk from Time Autograph signed the Got Milk out in the middle of the skate park bus. I'm a truck driver, I was a homeless veteran, and I came across a magazine rack, and I decided to get a truck driving license. Hit skate parks using a truck. I hit over 150 skate parks in that journey. I actually stayed with you in Houston, shook your hand, but then I snuck up to your vert ramp at that restaurant and dropped in without anybody knowing I was up there. But I was really excited about this. I had to be a part of this. I didn't know I was going to try to rekindle these memories in front of this whole crowd, but here I am doing it. Thank you for this whole event.
I'm going to need you to sign the waiver for dropping on the program, if you don't mind. Post-actively.
Hey, wait, hold on. I just want to say one thing. Many of you don't know that Christian Hosoi used to be on the Bones Brigade. At one time, we sponsored him, okay? And unfortunately, it didn't work out. His father, and we were all still good friends, but his father didn't feel like I was moving his career along fast enough, and he took him off the team. I had an opening for the team as a result of Christian's loss, and to make a long story short, I filled that opening with Tony Hawk. And so how's that for fate? Maybe Tony would never have been part of the Bones Brigade had Christian stayed. But in all spirit and everything, Christian's still part of the Bones Brigade. He's still part of us. So come on up here, Christian. These guys skated yesterday the Combi Bowl, and I have to say they actually really love each other. And it was so much fun watching them skate together. Because now it's not competition, but it's still pushing each other and appreciating each other. So it's wonderful to see it. And Christian's always been kind of a brother to all of us.
Hey, thank you, Stacy. Thank you guys for, I do feel like, Stacy was a huge part of my career for that time because I turned, amateur and literally started skating vert, and Stacy recognized it, and he's like, you're gonna ride for us, and I got on, and I was hanging out with all these guys, minus Tony Hawk, because he wasn't on yet. And then, I didn't share the story yesterday, but how I got off, I wanted to turn pro after I won the Gold Cup. I won the Gold Cup series at my home park. I was like, Stacy, I want to turn pro, and he's like, well, you're not ready, and so, I don't think we've ever talked about this, so this is a good moment. But Stacy was like, I go, how long? And he goes, well, it'll be about 2 years. And I was like, oh, definitely, I want to be like the youngest kid to turn pro. I want to beat all these pros. I want to skate against Cab. And I was had such zeal to want to and I was like, I can't wait that long. And so I got on Dogtown, and then that's when me and Tony were on Dogtown together for like a minute. And then he got on Powell, and then immediately Dogtown went out of business. It was Mike Smith, me, Gator, and Tony talk on Dogtown. And one day, Mike Smith comes to the skate park, and he's got a Madrid board, and he's like, Dogtown went out of business. And I was like, what? I had my model, I had the graphics, my dad drew the graphics and everything. I mean, this is Dogtown. Peralta, Stacy made a movie about Z-Boys in Dogtown, and I came from that. I wrote for Z-Flex because of Jay, then I wrote for Dogtown because of Shogo and all those guys. But here I am, sitting there, and then I had to, like, I went to get a Dwayne Peters board, a tracker board. I went to hang out with Cab in Winchester, and I got a tracker ad with a 777 board, and then I met Brad Bowman, and Brad Bowman was like, man, you gotta ride for Sims. And these are these people, you don't even know how iconic, like Stacy Brooks, obviously you do, you're here. But for us back then, it was like you either knew or you didn't, and we happened to be at the right place at the right time. And for me to grow up in that time zone with all those people and to have them recognize me like Stace, even him saying I'm part of the Bones Brigade, it feels good, I tell you. I feel like that kid again, you know what I mean? That's, you know, accepted, that you're validated, that you're affirmed, you know what I mean? Because I heard it from my mentors like Shogo and Jay and Tony, but when Stacy also recognized that, and then Brad Bowman, and then Tom Sims, I had a meeting with Tom Sims, and then 2 years later, here's what I'm getting to. 2 years later, I turned pro for Sims. So Stacy was correct on the time of me turning pro, and I don't think he knows this, but that I always thought about that and said, man, Stacy was right when I would probably turn pro, so I thought I'd mention that.
Perfect. We're gonna close this part out, but I just want to let everyone know that we've already raised 150 grand to the skate charities that we're doing. I think we're doing 3 or 4, guys. 4, okay. So this has been very successful. We've got a lot more to go today. We're going to take a quick break, but thank you guys so much. This has been a great start. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.